There is a story in the 21st chapter of Numbers that is one of the most compressed and most psychologically striking in the entire Bible. It takes only a few verses. It involves serpents, and it rests on a logic that is at first encounter almost impossible to make sense of. The Israelites are in the wilderness. They are tired and they are complaining against Moses, against God, against the provision of manna. They have been in the desert for years, and their frustration breaks out in words that the text records with uncomfortable specificity. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? There is no bread, there is no water, and we detest this miserable food. The response is immediate and terrifying. The Lord sends fiery serpents among the people. They bite the Israelites and many die. The people come to Moses and confess, "We have sinned by speaking against the Lord and against you. Pray that he will take the serpents away." Moses prays. And what God tells him to do is not what anyone would expect. Make a snake and put it up on a pole. Anyone who is bitten can look at it and live. Moses makes a bronze serpent and puts it on a pole. And anyone who is bitten by a serpent, if they look at the bronze serpent, lives. Carl Jung would say, this is one of the most exact images of how healing actually works that ancient literature has given us. The logic of the bronze serpent is homeopathic in structure. The thing that wounds is the thing that heals. The serpent that kills is the serpent that, when faced directly, when turned into an image, lifted up and looked at, becomes the instrument of survival. This logic is deeply counterintuitive to the ordinary strategies of psychological self-protection. The ordinary strategy is avoidance. What hurts us, we move away from. What threatens us, we turn away from. What wounds us, we try to ensure we never encounter again. The flight from the thing that bit us is, in an immediate and practical sense, sensible behavior. But Jung spent his career documenting the ways in which avoidance, as a long-term psychological strategy, tends to fail. Not because the avoided thing goes away, it doesn't, but because the energy that goes into maintaining the avoidance is enormous, and because the avoided thing, deprived of direct encounter, tends to grow in the unconscious. The thing we most refuse to look at becomes paradoxically the thing that most controls us. He called this the principle of enantiodroma, borrowed from the pre-Socratic philosopher Heraclitus. Things at their extreme tend to turn into their opposite. The energy that is most rigidly suppressed tends to emerge most forcefully. The shadow that is most firmly refused tends to erupt most disruptively. The serpent in the Hebrew Bible carries a complex load of symbolic meaning. In Genesis, it is the tempter, the voice that introduces the knowledge of good and evil. In the ancient Near Eastern world more broadly, the serpent is associated with both danger and healing. It is the creature that sheds its skin and renews itself, that moves between the world above and the world below, that is at once deadly and regenerative. In Jung's symbolic vocabulary, the serpent is one of the primary images of the unconscious itself. Its power, its danger, its capacity to wound and to transform. The serpent in the grass that you don't see until it bites you is precisely the archetype of the unconscious content that strikes from below the thresholds of awareness. The Israelites' complaint in the wilderness, "We hate this food, we are going to die here, we were better off in Egypt," is, in Jung's framework, an eruption of something that has been suppressed through the long years of the desert journey. The liberation from Egypt was real. The provision of manna was real, but so is the exhaustion, the disorientation, the grief for what was familiar, even when what was familiar was slavery. These feelings cannot all be held within the acceptable emotional range of a people who are supposed to be grateful for their redemption. And what cannot be held consciously tends to return unconsciously in distorted form. The serpents from the sand, the venomous biting reality of the shadow, appear when the suppression breaks. God's instruction to Moses is not to pray for the serpents to be removed. The serpents are not removed. God does not say, I will take them away. He says, make one and put it on a pole, and whoever looks at it will live. The healing comes not from the elimination of the serpent, but from the direct encounter with it. The bronze serpent is the serpent made visible, made into an image, raised up, held before the eyes of the community. Instead of avoiding the thing that is killing them, the Israelites are instructed to look at it. This is the core of what Jung would call shadow work, the deliberate turning of attention towards what the psyche has been refusing to see. Not to wallow in it, not to be consumed by it, but to look at it, to hold it in conscious awareness, to allow the image of the thing that wounds to be present before you, seen and acknowledged. And the promise, which is extraordinary, is that this looking is itself healing. Anyone who is bitten, if they look at the bronze serpent, lives. Not if they fight the serpent. Not if they deny they were bitten. Not if they find the medicine that counteracts the venom. Simply if they look. Jung documented this principle across clinical practice. The patient who could bring into conscious awareness the thing they had most been fleeing, the suppressed memory, the unacknowledged impulse, the denied truth about themselves or their circumstances, did not necessarily find that the bringing to consciousness was comfortable. It almost never was. The thing that had been suppressed was suppressed for a reason. It was painful, or shameful, or frightening, or some combination of all three. But the patient who could look at it, who could hold it in awareness without either being overwhelmed by it or fleeing back into denial, was almost invariably more whole after the encounter than before it. Not because the wound disappeared, not because the serpent was gone, but because the energy that had been used to avoid the looking was now available for living. The bronze serpent on the pole is exactly this, the wound made conscious and visible, lifted up before the eyes of the community, held in the open where it can be seen. And the community that looks at it, that does not turn away from the image of its own danger and its own shadow, is the community that survives. There is a detail of the bronze serpent story that extends beyond the book Numbers. In the second book of Kings, we are told that King Hezekiah, during his religious reforms, destroys the bronze serpent, which has apparently been preserved and has become an object of worship. The Israelites have been burning incense to it, and Hezekiah breaks it into pieces and gives it a dismissive name, Nehushtan, just a thing of bronze. Jung would find this a precise image of a different era, the reification of the healing symbol. The bronze serpent is given not to be worshipped, but to be looked at. The act of looking, the conscious encounter with the image of the wound, is the medicine. When the image itself becomes an object of devotion, when the vehicle of the healing becomes the object of the healing, something has gone wrong. The symbol has been literalized. What was meant to be a way of seeing has become a thing to be seen. The serpent in the wilderness healed because of the quality of attention the Israelites brought to it. Hezekiah is right to break it when that quality of attention has been replaced by idol worship. The healing was never in the bronze, it was in the looking.